Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Coram and Justin Nielsen here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, where we did see strong gains across the board and a couple of stocks showing some particularly compelling action today, Justin.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at some of the oil stocks because, there was a real big jump in them. So we'll take a look at Denbury and also HF Sinclair, also known as Dino. But let's not forget about those pharmaceuticals and biotechs. We've got also Regeneron Pharmaceuticals on the tap.
Exactly. Yeah, a day of strength for a number of biotech stocks as well. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. So the Nasdaq today up 2.3%, but even stronger was the S&P 500 up 2.6%, and the Dow up 2.66% today. Justin, so can we officially call a bottom now? We're done with the selling. It's over. Today was so strong. How could we continue to go down?
Not quite. One day does not a rally make. While the action is encouraging, there's all sorts of things that could be behind this. One thing that was a positive, we did get two pieces of economic data, both the ISM. Manufacturing index, which came in a little bit weaker than estimates, but also the PMI manufacturing index that came in a little bit higher. But I think more importantly, and Ed mentioned this on IBD Live this morning, was that the ISM employment index was down 5.5%. So this is something that we've been looking at, such a tight labor market. If this can kind of ease off a little bit, then that might be helpful for the markets. And letting the Fed know that their actions have been noted and they are taking effect and they can slow down. So,
Yeah.
but you look at this and this index, all the indexes, they have a lot of work to do. We just got to those June lows. The S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average went below their June lows. The
Right.
Nasdaq held, but just barely, right? So this is certainly a strong day, but the Nasdaq,
Not
it
even
was
to the 10-day line.
yeah, it's still below the 10. I think this was an inside day for the Nasdaq.
Mm,
So and
yeah.
and both the indexes did close a little bit off their lows. They were up much higher. So I
Off
personally
highs,
need a
yeah.
little bit more evidence before I am going to even think about jumping in with both feet. This is just, again, you get a lot of strong days sometimes during market corrections, and they're followed by weak ones. You just have to look to last week, where we had a nice strong day, and anyone that was thinking that was the end got a big
Dose of
kind of
reality.
yeah, there we go the next day.
Exactly. All right. Well, something we'll keep tabs on. We do have now a new rally attempt in effect. We'll see how long that lasts. Will it end tomorrow, or in a couple of days? Will we get more signals of strength? That's what we're on the lookout for next. So it does seem like we're at a key inflection point. Can we hold back above those June lows now that they've been tested? Are we going to fall through, or are we going to bounce from here? And as you've always been right to point out, Justin, is even if we do get a bounce, it doesn't mean that we're going to be going straight up. There could be a lot of chop from here.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we have to also see kind of come around into our favor is better setups in the individual stocks. It's one thing to have indexes doing well, but if you don't really have the underlying qualities in your individual stocks for purchases, well, then that's going to be making it very difficult to find any merchandise to buy. And right now, one of the biggest issues I have with a lot of the stocks out there is they just don't have a good volume profile. You've got a lot of strength, you've got a lot of strength in volume coming on the downside and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of weakness in volume coming on the upside. That's the exact opposite of what you want to see.
Right. Yeah, we need that to turn around for the broad market and individual stocks before we can start feeling more confident about how things are going. Let's also take a look at the Russell 2000 because I pulled up the S&P 500 as well here. So we'll just take a quick look at small caps also with a test close to those June lows and a little bit of a bounce here. But an interesting story today, Justin, in the 10-year Treasury yield. Always something interesting, it seems like, to talk about. Starting the week down, but off lows. But if we can see the yield come in a little bit, maybe that could be some relief for a rally.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this ISM employment number did kind of say, okay, maybe the work here is getting done, that the Fed can slow down a little bit on their hikes. But there's a lot of work to be done still. I mean, everyone's kind of beyond the hikes. They're still talking about that balance sheet that got swelled to 9 trillion. So there's still work to be done here. So I think it's too early to call victory, but
Right.
certainly it has given some relief to the to stocks to see that 10-year treasury come in a little bit. I mean, we almost got above 4%, which is, I mean, if you go to the weekly chart, it's a level that we haven't seen.
Maybe we got to go to the
Yeah, monthly
monthly.
chart. Yeah, excuse
Keep
me.
zooming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
4%.
yeah, 12
Yeah.
years since we've been up there. So, that's just very hard when you've got those discounted cash flows, or I should say future cash flows, being affected by that 10-year treasury for stocks. It's hard for them to make progress when you've got a
Right.
10-year treasury rising to such a, I should say the yield
Yeah.
rising to such a
Yeah.
degree as we've seen.
Yes. Okay. We'll continue to watch that and see if it can hold above 3.5%, above this 21-day line, and how the week is going to play out. But let's also take a look at USO, which is a proxy for oil, up about 4% today. We did see a jump related to some OPEC Plus news, reports of OPEC Plus looking at cutting production by 1 million barrels a day, and they're going to meet on Wednesday in Vienna on this, Justin. So, something that we've talked about in the last couple of months is how we've seen, the underlying commodity continue to go down, even though a number of oil stocks had been working on the right side of their bases, some handles, but a lot of them really moving today, especially on this news.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was one of those things where, we have a look at the industry groups. We have the whole market broken down into 197 industry groups. And when you looked at those, I mean, there was this weird thing going on in the dairy products. I'm going to just throw that out because it's a very small group. But other than that, it was really dominated by oil industry groups, oil and gas. So that's certainly worth noting. And as you mentioned, a lot of these stocks were setting up, but again, they didn't all have that great volume component. And it was
Mhm.
really hard to get too excited about it when you saw the the oil spot price coming down as much as it has.
Right. So if we do start seeing a turn in the tide in this underlying commodity, do you think that would give you more confidence in making trades in this sector, even though a lot of them are in somewhat later stage bases?
Well, now the trick is going to be, okay, let's say we do turn around on USO. The spot price of crude oil is looking better. The problem is that because a lot of these stocks were holding up, and as you mentioned, making the right side of their bases, making their handles, I could easily see them being extended by the
Yeah.
time you feel
Right.
confident to get back into them. So, look, they don't hand you the money on a silver platter, and they're not going to make it easy on you.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some of the names in the group that you have your eye on, like Denbury, a strong move this stock has made in recent sessions, including today, up 4% above average volume. So, Justin, the volume profile here is looking pretty good.
This one is so different from so many stocks out there, and that's why it's really captured my attention because you just see a lot of above average volume spikes that are blue. And when it did pull back at this most recent time, it happened on pretty light volume, certainly compared to the
Right.
blue volume on either side of it. So that's something I really like to see. At this point, look, we put this on our watch list for leaderboard. The reason why we didn't put it on was, number one, there is that continued concern about the disconnect between the spot price and the
Right.
oil stocks themselves, but also it just looks a little bit extended. This is the sixth day up in a row, so we're going to kind of see how it handles itself. Does it take a pause here before it makes another push? But certainly, the volume profile on this is much better than a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stocks out there.
All right. Well, what about Dino HF Sinclair? It's got an RS line, a blue dot as it works on the right side of this handle, but it too feels like the recent buying opportunity may have passed, although it could be on the verge of clearing a cup with handle. But buying breakouts in the 2022 bear market has not been easy, Justin.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of breakout failures, and so that is something that causes hesitation. This was actually the only stock that I saw on the MarketSmith breakout screen today. That's one of those things you can get to from that open stock ideas, a great place to be looking for ideas. But again, there just wasn't that many breakouts today, which makes sense because the market's been in this pullback phase. A lot of stocks aren't quite set up to break out at this point. But I agree with you. I think that I'd much rather get into a trend line break a little bit early because a lot of times these breakouts have failed. And while the volume did come in today, 22% above average, you can see that there. It is still a little bit not, I mean, it's not great. There's still a lot of
It doesn't
spikes
have
on the red
that
side.
power, that
Certainly not a
undeniable
Denbury.
power behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
one thing that a lot of these stocks do have, and Dino especially, it does have that relative strength. You see that blue dot, which means that this is a stock that's been basing and it's been able to have that relative strength, make new highs while it's been basing. So I think that's one thing that does really kind of hold a lot of weight. But again, you've got in this market a lot of things that are giving you pause, giving me pause at least.
Hmm. All right, and moving on, now let's take a look at Regeneron. We talked about the strength in biotech stocks. So, Regeneron, a part of that today with a gain of almost 7% and a strong finish as well. Recent gap up, didn't give up much ground, went nice and tight sideways, hovering around that 700 mark and really lifting off again today.
Yeah, and so with a lot of these biotechs, you have news that comes out on how they're doing on, their different phases of trials and with different diseases, how the endpoints are working on these diseases, what the data is showing, and that's what you got on September 8th for this. They're very big into a lot of eye diseases, so I know macular degeneration is one that they're, have a lot of treatments for, and I know it was that and something else, another eye disease, I believe that did kind of meet their primary endpoints. Very important trials for them, and you saw a big change in the price as a result. But what's most important to me is after that huge difference in valuation, right? So many investors coming in saying this company is now worth more because of the progress being made on these treatments. The fact that it's able to hold those gains is what is really important too. And enough to the point where I think even Goldman Sachs is looking at it and saying, "Hey, we have to change our price target on this." So they
Mhm.
raised it, almost what 200 points from 756, I think, to 970, something like that. I could have
Mhm.
the numbers wrong on that. 796 to 970. So big change there. They didn't change their rating on it. They maintained it at a buy rating, but you're seeing a lot of investors look at this company and say, hey, because of the progress that they're making on these diseases, this is a company that's worth more once these trials get finished, assuming that they continue to go well. So again, what I like is the tight action. You saw that the volume just started trickling off compared to that gap. Now, if we can see some volume come in. This was something that did have some very heavy volume today. If you can see that volume continue to rise on the upside, I think this is something that's going to look, very interesting.
Mhm. And thoughts on the weekly chart here, Justin, and where it is in its move? It seems like it could still be in the early stages here, maybe a little bit of a bump in the road in the most recent earnings report, but it seems like investors really are setting their sights on those positive trials for the eye treatment, as you said.
Right. Well, on the technical side here, one of the things that a number of people were mentioning is the golden cross, giving people hope. And that's where you get the 50-day or the 10-week moving average line crossing above the 200-day or the 40-week moving average line. And so you can see that there. This isn't a signal I particularly like. I think a lot of times it tends to be late. But in this case, Regeneron was really basing to a large degree, and it wasn't giving up too much ground. Go ahead and hover over that base pattern. And one of the things I like about MarketSmith is that it will just automatically kind of give you that calculation of how deep was the base. And 28% in this market correction is not a lot. with a lot of these stocks, I mean, you've got the Shopify's and PayPal's correcting like 90%. So when you see something at 28%, that's a reason why that relative strength line looks so strong. That's not too much of a correction. And so to me, the golden cross in this case really didn't happen from a major base, a major deep base, whereas a lot of times that golden cross becomes late. I think it's
Mhm.
actually a decent signal here because of all of this sideways action that it had. So while I'm not using that as my primary motivation for being
Right.
interested in Regeneron, I think it's something that could bring other investors into the mix. Because remember, we're not the only ones analyzing these with our methodology. A lot of people are doing it with theirs, and
Mhm.
the golden cross is just something a lot of people look at. So it's just one more thing to kind of check off on your
Yes.
list of things that are positive.
All right. Well, thanks for that breakdown, Justin. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live. So please join us, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. And it is the first week of a new month. And a new quarter.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? We're in Q4 2022. What a year this has been. This has just
Yes.
been a heck of a year.
I think a lot of people are ready for it to be over, right? I think we've
Yeah.
been ready for each year to be over for the last 3 years, but
Yeah, but anyway, we have our scorecard webinars for a swing trader and leaderboard coming up this week, Tuesday and Thursday. So if you're a subscriber or trialist, keep an eye out for more details on that. We'll see you there tomorrow and Thursday, and we'll see you right back here after the close tomorrow as well. Thanks, everyone.